Rab Nawaz is poor, relies on his landlord for almost everything, owns almost nothing. In Pakistan's rural heartland, his life and that of millions of others is unrelentingly tough. Deep in debt a year ago, he felt he had no choice. He says he sold one of his kidneys.
It's a very big scar.
He shows me a foot-long scar that wraps around his skinny frame from back to belly. He tells me he borrowed money from his landlord to pay for his wedding, for medical bills for his wife and 6 children. Over the years, about $1,000. Then last year, the landlord told him he had to repay right then, or sell his wife, his children, or a kidney. I am helpless. Should I sell my children? Should I sell my children? So it's better I sell my kidney. I had to return the money, he says. Rab Nawaz paid off his debts, but now says he's too weak to work the long hours to earn what he could before. Now in a worse poverty trap, entirely beholden to the goodwill of another landlord. It isn't supposed to be this way. A law passed in 2007 banned transplants for money. In the villages around the farm where Nawaz works, it's easy to find people with the telltale scar and the horror stories that prompted the passing of the law.
The 3 men I'm just about to be introduced to have all sold their kidneys. That's why they've been brought here to meet us. Hello.
Hello.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello. Assalamu alaikum.
2 of them come forward, show us their scars. And documentation of where their kidneys were removed. At that time, completely legal.
And this was at the kidney centre in Rawalpindi.
Close by at another farm, I meet another man who says he legally sold a kidney.
After you. And how much money did you get for your kidney?
He tells me his landlord forced him to pay off money he'd borrowed for medical bills and his sick children who were dying. Bewitched, he says. He produces documents showing his kidney was removed at the Rawalpindi Kidney Centre, for which he says he was paid $1,600.
Admission 25th of April 2005. Date of the operation, same day, 25th of April 2005. You were discharged a week later on the 2nd of May.
He was left, he says, barely able to work. He has no idea who got his kidney, but the Pakistani government says chances are it ended up leaving the country. Back then, there were about 2,000 transplants a year. 1,500, the government says, were so-called transplant tourists. So many in this poverty-stricken corner of the country sold kidneys. Eventually, the government intervened. Late in 2007, the law was passed, aimed at ending Pakistan's dubious status of one of the world's leading organ bazaars.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you? Thank you very much for talking to us. I appreciate it.
But the law seems to have had limited effect. Mohammed Iqbal tells me he is 50 and has been told by his landlord to pay up on debts he owes. The by now familiar choice, sell his children or a kidney to pay up. He tells me that's not a choice. When we meet him, he's already been for pre-op tests.
What's incredible here is that the law that bans the type of operation that he's going to go through came into place in 2007, and yet he's still able to go to a doctor. The doctor's given him advice, that's what he has to do under the law, that this could make him weaker. But he's going to make money out of it, 100 to 150,000 rupees he's been promised, and that is absolutely illegal. Yet, in just a few days, he's expecting to sell his kidney.
That will mean between $1,100 and $1,600. Iqbal's too afraid to tell us who is setting up the surgery or where it will take place. So we asked Rab Nawaz, who sold his kidney after the law came into effect, to show us where he had his removed. A few days later, we meet him in Rawalpindi, along with a local journalist who's travelled with him from his small town.
You too.
We watch from a distance as Nawaz walks to the gates of the kidney centre, where he says he was paid to donate a kidney. He plans to ask for his medical records. It is no secret that prior to the 2007 law, this clinic was one of the leading users of purchased kidneys. Now the clinic tells us it abides by the law and doesn't get involved in any deals between kidney donors and recipients.
So when you got to the hospital, they told you they didn't have a record of the operation?
An hour later, we meet Nawaz again in a nearby park. He tells us a doctor told him they don't have a record of his operation last year because he says they told him when a patient leaves, they destroy the records. Standing there, it is hard for me to fully understand the courage it took for him to make the journey. In this country, he has few rights and even less security. Nawaz tells me back in his village he was warned not to come. So too the local journalist who came with him to help get his story out.
It's a noble cause. You are from America coming here to highlight this issue. Why should I leave this noble cause?
A noble cause, he says. But as we explain in part 2, it is a practice the government is finding difficult to stamp out when there is so much poverty and so much money to be made. Nic Robertson, CNN, Sargodha, Pakistan.